States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Larry Cohen.
Here.
Betsy Dennis.
Here.
Jennifer Edge.
Absent.
Tracy Annalek Everett.
Excused.
Christine Galvo.
Excused.
Frank Garna.
Here.
Georgia Patchen.
Here.
Bill Zow.
Here.
Melissa Thompson.
Here. Would you like to review the fire exits?
Yes, we have the two fire exits that are located in the rear of the LGI.
And would you like to introduce our workshop tonight?
Yeah, for our workshop tonight, Dr. Sieverding is going to give brief comments about his building. For those of you in the audience, this meeting tonight started off with a tour of the building. One of the board's obligations is to tour the different facilities, and so Dr. Sieverding will follow that up with some additional comments.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg. So, I'll make some references to the two labs that we visited as I go through my presentation. Obviously, the interactive lesson that you saw in the immune system is one example of trying to infuse more technology in the delivery of instruction. And as I'm thinking you would much agree with that it's a great way to get kids connected to the instruction and to have them engaged. The other one was the Novanet, and we've talked at length about that, and I'll make some references as I'm going through my presentation. The meeting agenda that you see there, I want to talk first about some of the curriculum initiatives that we have put into place and that we are also beginning to put into place to support the academic targets in the four major areas: social studies, English, math, and science. And I would like to take you through each of these areas, and you can see what's happening to keep our students on track, that they meet the targets that were set for them. Also, I'd like to update you on other major issues and concerns, and then questions that you may have. If you look at the first one, the curriculum, you have that in front of you, the curriculum initiatives in social studies. Those are a few of the things that we're doing, and many of them revolve around the concept of literacy skills and Common Core initiatives. If you look at the first two, the emphasis on the analysis of primary source documents, and then also across the board, our social studies teachers are using or increase the use of National Archives documents, and it's an analysis across all the grade levels. If you put those two together, practically every exam, every Regents exam has a significant portion of that exam about DBQ's, document-based questions, and what they have to do to analyze those documents and to use higher level thinking skills. And this simply will get to that particular aspect of the instructional process. Supporting Common Core initiatives in all the social studies classes. And the other one is infusing literacy skills to support college and career readiness. That has been one of the major concerns: students graduating from high school not ready for college or careers. All right, so these are all initiatives that we're beginning to infuse in our instruction. Obviously, greater emphasis on the writing process, and we've also aligned, we have an AP US History course, and aligned that with the Common Core standards as well. All right. Also, they're incorporating literacy strategies like close reading, which is also a major part of the English curriculum. It also carries over to the social studies curriculum. Last year, we began to start using vocabulary across the grade levels, that there was a common language that kids would hear, from one subject to another. And obviously, the writing skills that need to be addressed. The second one, the National Archives, what happens is they use a form that will be consistent, throughout the social studies classes as they guide the analysis of any primary source document. All right. The next one would be the curriculum initiatives in the English program, infusing literacy skills, embedding Common Core strategies. Right now in the English program, we are using the Common Core modules in English 9. If you look out 2 years, the students that are currently taking English 10 and English 11 are able to take the old 2005 readings exam in English 11. Current freshmen cannot. They have to use. They will be taking the Common Core exam when they get to be juniors, and we are infusing. Obviously following that Common Core in 9th grade, and I'm sure you've probably heard across the state that the modules coming out have been slow coming, which presents obviously a difficulty. But the English teachers have been using the Common Core strategies, even before the modules. In other words, starting back to last year and the year before. Also, any curriculum development is going to model vertical scaffolding from one grade level to the next. So we're building skills from the 9th grade to the 10th grade to the 11th grade, and that's a very important thing. And also the professional development with turnkey training and staff development. One other aside here, one of the things that we're looking at, and hopefully second semester we can roll it out in our TV production program, where we have the facilities, but there's a wonderful way where you can connect the TV production program to writing skills. And one of the things that Mr. Gersh and I are going to be looking at over vacation is for kids to write and have like a news broadcast once a week where they write the stories, write the news, so again, writing, and research, and then present it to the rest of the school rather than making the announcements over the PA. So that's something that I'm very much interested in doing. The initiatives in mathematics, same thing there. We are following the Common Core initiatives for algebra. That is the only math course this year that the Common Core is presenting. That will take kids to June 3 when they will take a Common Core exam in algebra. And then a couple of weeks later, not even 2 weeks I don't think, when the regular Regents exam comes about, the integrated algebra, students have an option of doing both. So June 3rd, they take the Common Core, which we suspect is going to be a tough exam. And then a week and a half later, they can still sit for the integrated algebra. The problem is that the curriculum for Common Core is not identical to the integrated algebra. So for that week and a half, teachers are going to have to analyze where the gaps are, get kids up to snuff, and then, if they do take both, which makes sense to do, the higher grade will prevail. So that's why the decision was made today to take both of those exams. We're continuing the assessment of existing curricula and that follow the New York State performance indicators. Some of the classes that I've observed up to this point, extensive use of technology in the sense of dynamic websites. Much of what you saw earlier with the science piece, math, many of them exist already on web-based kind of programs, which sort of it isn't like the other day, a lesson on parabolas that showed in nature where do you see parabolas. So all these different buildings and all the structures, and how do you calculate the definition and the equation for a parabola. Graphing calculators is a big thing. Teachers using the graphing calculator for mathematical instruction. And then the ongoing initiatives to develop common assessments within the department. In science, similar, there are curriculum development which are congruent. There are national standards now. They're called the Next Generation Science Standards, which are national standards, which they're similar to the Common Core. So anything that we do in writing curriculum, a lot of literacy skills, reading from information, reading for interpretation, inquiry-based learning, is going into this approach. Another example where the connectivity to mathematics from science, for example, the teacher's doing a lesson on genetic drift and genetics, so that requires what's called the Hardy-Weinberg principle. I didn't say Harvey-Hilbert principle, I said Hardy-Weinberg principle. That principle is tough. It's an example of how, science and math, obviously they go together very well. So they'll be doing things like graphing, using the equation, and you can see that there's a lot of connectivity. That's why the interdisciplinary approach, I feel, is very important. Let me give you a brief update on other issues and concerns. Currently, we have gone back to 3 years of data at Beacon High School, and to look at the whole problem of why students drop out of high school and do not graduate. We've compiled the data. Currently, I'm working on the analysis of that data. I've been working with the counselors who not only we have looked at the data, but also the important part is provided narrative information of why the students dropped out. And I said over the last 3 years, we are looking at this issue. I'll be working over the draft over the vacation period when you have some time to really, put your head together and put the preliminary draft together. And then the idea is for you to take a look at the draft, and then the next step would be to present it to the community at large. Because we're not talking about simply a Beacon High School problem. We're talking about a Beacon High School, City of Beacon issue that everybody needs to be on board for that. And, I've started to look at some of the preliminary numbers, some interesting things. What I want to do, which I will, is to weave through, some statistical data from other places. One, for example, that came across my desk a couple of days ago, and this already has come up when we look at our kids, why they drop out. One of the big issues was attendance. And the fact that they came with, this person did a study, and it just came out November 20th, 2013. And it's, it's pretty mind-boggling when you really think about this. His conclusion was that 6th graders who miss 20 days of class had at least a 20% chance of not graduating from high school on time. He's done similar studies in Philadelphia, in Seattle, Washington, and it's just one aspect, and I think there's a lot of good information when we look at that, and where do we attack this problem. The author talks about, especially in a subject like math, kids missing 2-3 weeks of instruction where that curriculum is very much built upon what did you learn, the skills the day before, and they get behind, and they keep falling further behind. So I'll have that available after the December break, and then we'll go to the next step where we have a community forum to take a look at that. The other one, the graduation rate, obviously is directly related, related to this as well, and not completely, but certainly it has a big impact on it. Could you just slide it? I think the next one. I just want, my eyes don't work here either, but I'm looking at the numbers you have in front of you, and that is, it goes back 3 years, and the reason why 3 years, when you look at the data, because prior to 2010, 2011, students were counted as Beacon High School students or any district students. It didn't make any difference that they had to be here at least for 5 months, that they were counted in your census or in the cohort. Now, if a student enrolls in the district and he's there for 1 day, he's counted as a cohort in your graduating class. And that's another issue that comes up when you look at the preliminary results of, a number of kids who dropped out and let's say from other districts that come in, 17, 18 years of age, having 2, 3, 4, 5 credits, and needing another 17, for example, if you had 5 to graduate. So that's an issue, and not to say that it can't be overcome, but that's something we have to look at. And what I'll do is, when I put the data together, is to also then compare it to kids that went through the City of Beacon school system, that were here in high school, for example, for 4 years, instead of coming in, either as a latecomer, a junior or a senior. The numbers you see are, when you look at that, you see that's a problem. I mean, it's something that we have to address, and that's why I keep saying it's not only a high school, it's a community problem. And could you flip back to the next one, please? Yeah, the other one of the goals and the objectives that we have for the high school is I have a building climate committee, and one of the things that we need to do is to get a good handle on doing a building climate survey, doing a survey for students, for teachers, for parents, and to actually use good data to start planning. In other words, we have certain ideas about what happens in the one, say the dropout rate, or the graduation rate, but I think we're lacking, data to support initiatives that we want to pursue. So that's in the works as well, as a building climate survey. And the other one is 9th grade teaming. This is you heard me talk about that, I think, in my earlier report when we first opened up. So we're looking at that very closely. Obviously, it's a new initiative. It's a new approach. There's some bumps that we have to figure out how to solve, but for the most part, it's working in the sense that because one of the things that they talked about in that attendance study about students not going to school, that if you put a mentoring aspect in there, that is extremely helpful. Now, with the 9th grade teaming, we have 4 teachers that share 120 kids or so. So they're going back to those same 4 teachers. So there's a better mentoring aspect. All right, they're also going back to those teachers for one common period during the day for extra help, kids that are academically at risk. That's another part. So I have great hopes for that. And the other part is, let me put it out there too. I think as a district, we have to look seriously at kids coming into the high school and perhaps not being ready. The whole concept of social promotion. I mean, we're going to have to take a look at that too. I mean, if kids are coming into the building not ready, we're already behind the 8 ball. The boot camp that we ran over the summer, and I've gotten good reviews from parents saying that was the best thing that my kid coming here, even though it's a short period of time. And it's not content based. It's not in a short period of time. You're not going to teach the entire year over for kids that have failed 2, 3, 4 subjects. So you attack it from another place. Study skills, good habits, discipline. All right. So those are the kind of things I think that we really have to look at. I think that's it, right? Oh, well, let me leave you with that. This is what I said. I told when I spoke to the teachers when they came in, okay? So just change it to the entire Beacon City School District community, okay? I mean, it's a powerful statement. I was not going to put where I got it from, I'm sure you knew, all right? But we can only succeed by acting in concert. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. That was Lincoln's in his Gettysburg Address. And then the next one is, I am convinced, in my belief, that we can do better, we can overcome. I mean, it's like a perfect storm, you would agree, with some of the issues that we're dealing with. And it's not reflective of our collective abilities. So I think we just have to maintain a good, positive attitude and see how we tackle these issues. Okay. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions with this slide with the graduation rates. On your slide with the graduation rates, under all students For the second 2 years, you have two figures. Is
Yeah,
that-
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. We seem to do very well with some kids that need more time.
So that's the
a
5-year cohort.
That's the five-year rate.
cohort.
Yeah, 80.8% and then 84.3. The reason why you don't see it on the first one, 2012-13, we won't know that until
the end of the year.
Until the end of the next year.
Yeah.
A lot of those kids finish in August,
Right.
and so that's another good piece of information.
On special education, is that all based on 4-year cohort?
These here, I think they're I think they're combined with 2011-12, that 5-year rate, and that 80.8. I don't know if that was factored out. I mean, I can get that for you. but-
I'm just curious, because I know that a lot of the special ed kids, as they get on in their later years, some of them go into work study more.
Right.
And they take longer to graduate. A lot of them work on a 5 and some even 6-year cohort. But many of them do graduate. So the graduation rate is actually not reflective of the true number of special ed kids that do graduate.
Correct.
It's really a very distorted figure. Many more of our kids do graduate. It just takes them a lot longer.
It's the same thing if you look at the attendance rate. When you see 90%, 91, 92, 93,
Right.
you think, well, that's pretty decent, right? But it's not really if you start breaking it apart, because it's an aggregate number. I mean, it's everybody, so you have to look at individual kids to see what they're doing.
Yeah, the numbers, so it's, a lot of the numbers here are strangely accumulated, and they sometimes look a little bit distorted, sometimes they look a little low, sometimes they look a little high, so the numbers really should always be questioned, and again, it's things like the special ed graduation rate, and the fact is that a lot of kids do take 5 years, and our 5-year cohort is really good. It's up in the 80s, and the fact that we have an 80+% graduation rate at Beacon High, I think, is pretty damn good. And for kids to be able to graduate in 5 years, it's not a disgrace. It really isn't.
Does anyone else have questions? I'm interested in the boot camp is something that you brought into play
Correct.
a few years ago, right?
Yes.
And have you had the opportunity to gather in any data regarding those children as they have progressed through the building?
I have not, going back to 2 years, but that's going to be one part of my study when I put the numbers together for the team for 9th grade.
Right.
Certainly, if I remember correctly, the first year we did it, the study needs to be a lot more formal and detailed, but if I was looking at cursorily, looking at those numbers, I think it was successful for about 55 to 60% of the kids. But after all, the first year we did it, we had a good number of kids that actually failed 3 or 4 subjects.
So
they're
to catch
coming in
more than
here
half
with-
of them,
What's that?
and to catch
Yeah.
and bring up more than half of that group of kids is a
Right.
tremendous success.
And you know what? Most of the kids that are in that mental group, many of them were quite capable of doing the work. The issue a lot was attendance and managing yourself and be a good student.
Right.
And so I think that's where we need to look at, rather than trying in a couple of weeks to do the entire curriculum. But also, there's a downside to it. We all know that. But we all know that. But we got to do something. We have to do something.
Thank you, Dr. Seaver.
Okay. Thank you.
No, that's
May I have a motion for executive session?
Motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual.
Second.